Meeting to order, and as you can see, we are down a bit in councillors. We do have a quorum. Two of our council members are calling in on Zoom, and Jay and I are here in council. I just want to let everybody know that there are 2 vacancies on the library board. So if you know of anybody that's got interest in that, please have them contact the library, and they will arrange to get you forms to fill out. Is that correct, Christine? Yeah, I got a yes on there. So can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Jay, seconder, Fred. Comments, additions, deletions? All in favor? Carried. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes of July 6th regular council meeting? Jay, Fred, any changes, comments? All in favor? Carried. Attached, you will find the minutes for the Valley Bus Society July 2020 meeting. Are we doing emotions on these now? Just for information, yeah, these are for information only. So can I get a motion? Christine? Second, Jay? Comments? All in favor? Carried. And we are going to go to 5.1, and we have RCMP Sergeant Ed Bork here to do a presentation via Zoom. So welcome, Ed.
Yes, we can, Ed.
Culture.
Your Worship, forgive the interruption, Your Worship. The paper of record has just notified me that there's no audio. So what do we need to do? Because the audio is great in here. If we had all the mics on, would that help with? Sorry about this, Staff Sergeant.
No problem. Thank you for letting me know.
Try now. Ed, do you want to try and talk now? Let's see if we can hear you.
Sorry, I didn't quite hear that. Did you want me to say try this again?
Yep.
Okay, sure. So just start over from the top.
We're just having someone check to make sure that they can hear it from the viewing listener, so just give us a second.
Sure, thank you.
Yep, that works.
You're good to go.
Okay, great, thank you. So we were looking at the observations and conclusions that came in from the survey that went through the valley and I believe our detachment area. And we'll continue to work towards reaching more of the residents throughout the detachment area to ensure that they have the ability, whether it's electronically or the hard copies, to fill out the questionnaires, and perhaps more on a regular basis, not just once a year, but so that we're receiving feedback at different times of the year as well. So that was what our policing committee had brought up last meeting. I think it's a very valuable tool, and it's a good, very good idea to continue with that. So with the response that we had this go around, the high areas of concern that the public brought forward were break-enters, drugs, property crimes, / vandalism, and thefts with vehicles. And so in some discussions with Mayor and CAO previously as well, we're looking to really align our APP, which is the annual performance plan, to dovetail into dealing with those issues that the public has been advising, and just to really reassure them that we're listening to what their concerns are. And so another request that came out was for more police visibility, presence in the community. And so we're looking at as well addressing that. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the what we're implementing to cover that off here as well shortly. And as well, we received feedback that it would be appreciated to have more of a police presence in the community, but also in the schools. And so we've assigned an officer to each of the schools and then an overseeing officer that will help to coordinate that and then catch the stats as far as visits, the reasons why they went, any presentations, as well as the hours that we're spending, so that we can report that back to Mayor and Council as well. So what we've been doing to try to increase our police visibility in the area is taking advantage of programs that our headquarters puts together, such as the PROS Data Center. So that allows our officers to make a quick phone call to officers who work out of headquarters in Edmonton and just give them the summary of what they responded to. And in some cases, those files don't even get dispatched to our members. There's a unit, if the operational comm center does not see a need, there's no evidence or value for a police officer to actually attend, then that goes directly to the PROS Data Center, and they basically write the files up, contact the complainant, and then with all the information they have, and they conclude it based on that. So that really gives our opportunity of our members to be out on the streets and patrolling more. So that's one of our main responses to that. As well, we're looking to do some enhanced patrols. So there's been some conversation with Hannah and Stepford detachments to on a rotational basis to go through and do patrols, maybe traffic control, maybe some plainclothes work in some of the outlying communities within our 3 detachments, and just increase the police presence in that manner as well. As well, so our response to break enters and property crimes and vandalism, thefts from vehicles, we've been looking to as well institute some more bike patrols throughout the summer, plainclothes patrols as well. So already our operations officer, Corporal Alex McDonald, he's got a list of all the people who are on conditions in the detachment area, meaning that they've been released from the courts and they're on a recognizance to keep the peace, be of good behavior. They have to maintain a residence and be inside at certain hours, so they do curfew checks on those individuals. And in many cases, after I think they get sort of a 3-strike rule, where if they're not at the residence when they're checked upon, they're supposed to be there. So this is at 2, 3, 4 in the morning that we do those checks. Then we'll initiate charges at that point and then serve warrants on them. So that's been very helpful. And as well, just over the last few weeks, due to some training issues that we've had because of our junior membership here. So we had 6 cadets come in over the past about 8 months. And so the last of those cadets are now finishing their recruit field training. And so some of the field trainers are now able to go back in their units, in particular our crime reduction unit. And over the past 2 weeks, they have executed a number of warrants. And you'll see there's going to be a media release coming out from last week on a search warrant that was served on a residence in town. As well, the week prior to that, they also, by virtue of doing some surveillance and plainclothes work, they arrested another individual. And so all those individuals now have been charged with possession for the purpose of trafficking, and that looks like methamphetamine, as well as fentanyl and some of the dangerous drugs for sure. Just a couple more points that come up. So also as a result of our policing committee meeting, a couple questions came up that I'd like to address, and that was concerns for USA license plates or tourists coming into town. So we did a consultation with our district as well, and just got some information as to what other detachments are doing, which are similar tourist destinations. And in that sense, we were provided, all of our members on the, boots on the ground, so to speak, have now the appropriate charges and the support from the AHS and the ability now to, if somebody's here from the United States, they know that their powers of asking them to depart and basically, if need be, escort them right back to the border. So of course we work with different detachments at that level. If they're not here traveling through to get to Alaska, for example, and they're here conducting, tourism sort of thing, then basically that's the obligation on our part, is to make sure education at first, but then if there's any concerns or pushback, then that's what we do ultimately, as well as tickets and fines issues. Corporal McDonald is also our business contact as per our annual performance plan, and so he'll be maintaining contact with the businesses on areas of importance moving forward, and that's also sharing information with regards to current events that are happening, keeping an eye out for stolen vehicles, that type of thing, and making sure that we're getting suspicious activity reported to us. The request, or at least the topic came up, that perhaps we could conduct patrols to the Pioneer Center, stop in for coffee, that type of thing. So what we're looking to do is I'll be contacting them and making arrangements to see if perhaps we can sit outside, call it their crystal gondola, perhaps, where they're talking, having coffee together within the area, within Pioneer Center, and we can be sitting outside and just trying our best to just have a presence and just waving and if anybody has signs or whatever that they'd like to put up to us, that'd be great. But yeah, just having that connection with them, I think is really important. And I think that's all the main topics I wanted to cover. If there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Ed. Fred, go ahead.
Sorry, that unmute is a moving target. I'd like to see, Ed, if we can, over the summertime, I've had residents talk to me about perhaps more patrolling regarding speeding and traffic around playgrounds and stuff like that. If you could look at that, the kids are out of, well, they've been out of school for a while, but it's summer, and we're likely to be out on the street, so if you could have a look at that, that would be great, some more presence in the residential areas. And thanks for your report, Ed.
Right on. Yeah, and it's I can give you just a brief update on the traffic side of things at Mullen. A lot of our junior members are really peaking under Constable Doucette's wing, and I know that he's been talking about doing traffic control within the areas of the parks and playgrounds for the children as well. But yeah, we completely support that.
Christine, Jay, comments? Okay, I just want to thank you, Ed, for that presentation, and thank you for getting involved in that connection with the schools. What I've been talking with the schools, if we can kind of make that connection there, it's going to only help us going forward. And I really like the idea of the interaction with the seniors. That's really special. So thank you, good report, and appreciate your time today. And sorry it's in these different circumstances, but hopefully this too shall pass. So take care of yourself and stay safe, and thanks for looking after our community.
Right on. Thanks, you too, ma'am. Take care. Thanks, everyone.
All right, Daryl, we'll work on to 6.1.1, an update on COVID.
Thanks, Your Worship. So I was planning to provide just a bit of a reminder to everybody with the increased tourists and just people moving around about the abilities to protect yourself. And then this afternoon ended up getting a call from Alberta Health saying for those who watch the activity map in the province, Drumheller was upgraded to a watch category, which is blue in the map compared to yellow, as of this afternoon. We're not alone. There were 4 more regions that were activated today, including Nihil County was also activated. And what happens in those cases when you go to a watch category is over 10 cases in a zone or over 50 cases per 100,000 population, or that ratio. So in Drumheller, our ratio is 144 per 100,000. That's what our ratio is. And as of today, we have 13 active cases in Drumheller. So we went from, I think it was 5 on Thursday to 9 on Friday to 13 today. So for those who still are watching the news, there were 368 new cases over the weekend in Alberta. So every day was well over 100 cases. So we're certainly not seeing the end of it. I think Alberta Health is starting to become more concerned about the cases going back up. And certainly Alberta's not alone in this case. I think all of our neighbors are starting to see an increase as well. So and I think part of it is, as I was reading this morning in the Calgary Herald, it's a little bit of pandemic fatigue. People are just kind of tired about doing social distancing, wearing masks, trying to protect themselves in the public. And so, and you know, cases where we saw Sylvan Lake photos or some of the people in parks in Edmonton and Calgary where there's lots of people around, not social distancing. I mean, I even have heard of our Newcastle Beach that was pretty full last weekend or 2 weekends ago, just with the number of people around and not kind of staring in their cohorts. I guess the good news is I also have seen lots of people who have been doing social distancing really well. I was noticed yesterday at Riverside Park, there were lots of people that were out together and they were all 2 meters apart or more, kind of having a little bit of a get together. So that's a positive thing. So just want to remind people about what we should be doing, because ultimately we're all in this together, and we all need to succeed, and we all need to do our best to be able to help other people succeed. So number one, and like we're all doing in here tonight, wear a mask or a face shield when in public areas, especially if you can't give yourself 2 meters distance between you and another person. Cover your mouth and nose when you cough or sneeze. Wash and lather your hands for at least 20 seconds using soap and water. And use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Not only if soap and water is not available, but you should just be using it throughout the day anyway. Maintain social distancing at all times where possible, and avoid touching your face. One of the things that is a key conduit is your eyes and nose and mouth area. So making sure you're staying away from that. So, and then if you're thinking that you might be looking at some of the symptoms, go on alberta.ca or AHS's website, and you can go through a process to determine whether or not you should be quarantined or should be getting a test. The province is testing people that are asymptomatic as well as symptomatic. So I encourage you, you can also call 811 if you're not sure about, if you don't have the internet, and you can request callbacks to try to get you booked as fast as possible. They are doing tests in Drumheller Monday through Friday right now. They are doing them by appointment only, as we know right now. But, and they are very busy. I think everyone from Red Deer down, all of the centers between Red Deer and Calgary have seen a dramatic increase in the amount of tests since the middle of last week. So we're starting to see an increase in it because people are starting to find that they are getting sick. So as we know, Town Hall was closed last week because we had a person who had tested positive come through the doors a few times the previous week. And just out of an abundance of caution, we've closed Town Hall until we get people tested, or some of the people that have been in direct contact with that individual tested with negative results. So, yeah, I just want to remind people again, we want to make sure that if you're out in the public, wear a mask, avoid contact with other people, cover your mouth and nose, wash your hands frequently, use hand sanitizer, carry one with you all the time. Great one example right here. Maintain social distancing and avoid touching your face. So just a little update on that, and I'm not sure if there's any questions or comments from council.
Comments, anyone? Jake, go ahead.
Thank you, Daryl. All important reminders. I'm curious, we all know that the extraordinary steps that the town of Drumheller took through the EOC to help ensure that we did not become a hot spot immediately, as well as helping to avoid swamping the healthcare system when COVID first came to our shores. But we still have a world-class tourism destinations reputation to protect. I'm curious if there's a threshold. I don't know whether the measure would be active cases. I don't know if there's other measures that would be used that would trigger the reactivation of the EOC or the state of local emergency. And if not all the way up to that, what plans are we making to reinstate the sanitizing squads, etc., in the areas like the post office, etc., that we were, of course, terribly concerned about becoming vectors for this virus early on?
It's a good question. So overall, we've been through our contacts with AHS. What they told me today was that they're not concerned about us now. It just happens to be that watch is just a trigger for them. They feel that what we're doing is adequate through providing education and communication to the public right now. I think we're not different than any of the other communities that are in the watch category right now. So we're not looking to reinstate the EOC. We're looking to do more communication, and we have been doing that since the middle of last week with the public. We are not right now considering looking at doing sanitizing of that. What we're trying to do is get some of our partners to start doing it themselves, because part of the whole reason we did it in the first place was that they really didn't know what they should be doing, and so we're trying to help educate them to get to where they need to be. And now it's just going back to them and confirming that this is what they need to be doing to make sure that they're protecting everyone as well. So not taking as a direct approach as we had been back in March, in April when we were dealing with businesses that were unsure of what they should be doing. I think from what I've seen around the community that the businesses have actually been doing quite well at trying to make sure that they're sanitizing and they're trying to protect people. But it's just a matter of going back to them to make sure everyone knows what they should be doing at this point.
I understand, and I agree. There are many businesses, I think, who are absolutely doing it right. At the same time, I have to agree that fatigue is playing a role with a lot of people, and I think we need to be more vigilant as we see the cases grow here about what sort of passive or active role we're going to take. We were incredibly active, and I'm not suggesting a return to those days in its entirety, but not to pick on them, but just to take one example of the post office, someplace visited by a large number of people on a daily basis. The staffing situation hasn't changed there. They didn't have enough staff to clean and sanitize effectively back in April and May. Nothing's changed. And so I think if anything, what's becoming more and more evident is that the amount of education has already converted the choir, but the people who were non-compliant with those measures before have remained non-compliant. And so I worry that this community's overall reputation as a safe place to come and visit for all of our Alberta residents who are looking for some place to spend their dollars for their staycations is at risk if we don't start to talk about taking some steps, and I'd like to see us do that in the not so distant future.
Yeah, good point. I think one of the points that that you just reminded me about was that in the last week or so that the biggest group of people infected is under 40 years old, and that the largest area of concern is the fact that it's unknown where their origins were because they've been moving around so frequently throughout Alberta, and that's been causing a real issue because they can't do adequate tracing. So for all of those people who have tracing apps on their phones, you're not getting any calls because they can't actually get back to us. And so I think that's one of our challenges is that we're seeing lots of visitors, but we're also leaving the valley a lot more than we have been, and just interacting, and whether it be in Red Deer or Trochu or Calgary or Airdrie, we're just seeing a lot more travel like that. And I think what we'll be doing is this over the next couple of days, coming up with a plan to interact with a few of these places that are higher touch areas. So. And it's interesting, as an aside, not to slag anybody, but we had necklaces on all of the dinosaurs around town saying, please don't touch us. And those dinosaurs aren't owned by us, and the owners asked us to remove the necklaces because they were not very friendly to tourism. So there has to be a fine balance of what's our responsibility and what's the responsibility of the people that own different things in the community. So, we're doing our best to try to get that through.
My last word on it will be leading means taking people where they ought to go, not where they want to go.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Christine?
Yeah, Daryl, I'm just looking at the alberta.ca website here, and is there a place where we can direct people to go to watch and see that yellow status and if it changes?
So the quickest link is, I'm reading off, so it's alberta.ca/maps/COVID-19 status map. That's the quickest way to get to it. But you can also get to it through the COVID page on the front page of the alberta.ca website.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thanks for that update, Daryl. We'll just keep us informed.
Yes, I will. Yeah, we'll be. And we'll be updating the public on a regular basis. We've done some videos. We're doing some more videos this week. And again, through social media and the newspapers and radio, we're trying to make sure that everyone's informed, so the best of their ability, so.
Yeah, and I'm meeting with HS tomorrow. I've got a few questions for them to help as well, to keep them informed, so maybe we'll just keep up on those a bit too.
Yep.
All right, well then, let's move on to 6.1.2, please.
Thank you. So this is first reading for an amendment, a rezoning amendment for the Municipal Development Plan Bylaw 1420. So what we want to do is take an industrial development site, which is in the Rosedale, kind of the east end of the Rosedale Industrial Park, and make it an industrial development / compatible commercial development area. So again, first reading, just I'll explain it best. There's been land in that East Rosedale area. So this is Alberta Pool Road area, who have had, there's been very little activity there over the last number of decades. And there's a proponent that's looking to do some tourist / commercial type development in an area, and has acquired some of the land in that to be able to develop it into quite a significant tourist attraction. Hopefully that's their end goal with it. So, but however, it's zoned inappropriately for this land, and so there is no, for us, that's not valuable land from an industrial standpoint. We have other industrial land in Rosedale that we can also utilize that's even better suited for industrial uses. So we're recommending amendment to change it from industrial development to an industrial development / compatible commercial development.
Hey, can I get a motion? Christine? Christine?
Yeah, I just lost the thing here.
Oh, go ahead, Jay.
Thank you. I move that we give first reading to Municipal Development Plan Bylaw 14.20 to amend Municipal Development Plan Bylaw 11.08 for the town of Drumheller.
Seconder? Christine? All in favor? Carried. And just to note, there is a public hearing on that on August 4th.
So next on the list now, to tie in with the MDP, is a change in the land use bylaw. So this is for the same parcels of land, and what we're looking for is to change this from, I think it's zoned agriculture now, which is kind of a holding pattern, to direct control. And sorry, I'm just going to go through down to the report here. Oh, sorry, it's an M2 district to direct control. So direct control is one of those areas that council approves the type of use of it. So unlike setting for instance, a residential zone and then it's delegated to the MPC or development officer, direct control almost always comes back for approval to council. However, in this bylaw, we're recommending that the development authority be delegated to the development officer / MPC to do this in the future. Again, this is one area that the whole development will be direct control. And we felt until a new land use bylaw was actually created and passed, or finished and passed, that this was the best suited zoning for this area. So we're looking for first reading on this as well.
Got a motion, Jay, please?
I move that council give first reading to land use bylaw number 15.20 to amend land use bylaw 11.08 for the town of Drumheller.
Seconder? Fred? Okay, all in favor? Carried. And I note that that is also an August 4th public hearing.
Yes, right.
Okay, 6.14, Daryl, please.
Thank you. So just, we have done a number of, ways to help our community with, because of COVID. And so what we had looked at was that for our property taxes for people who don't pay on the monthly payment plan, they're all due at the end of August 31st. And so kind of in line with some other communities, what they've done, although most of them are a June deadline, we're recommending to give a 60-day additional deadline to have taxes due on October 31st, 2020 without penalty. So those are for people who pay everything in a lump sum. So whether it's they paid today or they're paying on August 31st, the idea was that they have 2 extra months to be able to pay. So this is really a way to kind of help people who are who have been out of work due to COVID or are staffed right now and are looking for a bit of a break until they get back on their feet. So we're recommending that council defer the property tax payments without penalty from August 31st to October 31st as a result of the COVID pandemic. So this applies to property owners who normally pay taxes in a lump sum on or before August 31st, 2020. And obviously anyone who's paid, thank you very much. And we would encourage people to pay if they are able to do it. But if you've paid today, it doesn't mean we're going to give you your money back until October 31st.
I got a motion, please. Fred? Oh, did you hit the wrong button? I thought.
He's turned himself off here.
Fred, did you, oh,
Oh, you're muted, Fred.
you're muted.
Sorry, I'm not able to read the motion, but having read it, I would move that, please.
Okay, so I'm going to read it for you. The council deferred property tax payments without penalty from August 31st to October 31st, 2020 as a result of COVID-19 pandemic and associated economic challenges. Do you agree with that, Fred? Okay.
Yes, please.
Seconder? Jay, comments? Jay?
Thank you. I'm really pleased that we're prepared to take this step to provide any additional assistance we can to people who are struggling financially this year, more than any other, I would imagine, that any of us can think of. My only concern is that even though I think the uptake might be a relatively small number, because certainly there was a relatively small number of people who took us up on the monthly deferral option. I realize that's a small group in comparison to the overall number who pay in a lump sum anyway. But Lynn, do we know off the top of your head, ballpark, how many people took us up on the monthly deferral?
I think I know it. It's around 20 or 22
Right.
altogether.
So we're talking about being helpful. So then let's be really helpful. I'm concerned about people who are only going to be returning to work in the fall. And I'm thinking of the person who brought this issue up to our forefront in the beginning. And I know that while 2 months of earnings will help, it's a lot of money to come up with in just a couple of months. And if there is no tangible threat to cash flow or our ability to operate, since we believe we'll be fine till the end of October, it's hard to imagine that we wouldn't also be fine then till the end of November. So I'm wondering, Fred, if you'll be willing to tolerate a friendly amendment to the motion that would see the deferral period extended another 30 days to November 30th?
Is that
I
not?
would accept that friendly amendment.
Administration, do you anticipate any issues with that?
Good question. I mean, we haven't looked at the numbers for that, but I guess my concern would be a little bit the closer we get to the end of the year, the more of a challenge we have with if people have not paid, of then being able to not roll them into tax arrears. So this at least gives 60 days to be able to kind of help them figure out a payment plan. But if it's November 30th instead of October 31st, we'll figure it out. So
I also have no issue if the motion is required to say October 31st is the payment expectation, but that no penalty would accrue until after November 30th. That's merely administrative, in which case we don't need to change the motion.
Right. Yep, that would work for sure.
We have that assurance that no one will be penalized until their taxes are overdue to December 1st?
Yes.
Excellent. That works for me, Fred. We'll leave the motion as is then. Thank you.
Okay, Christine or Fred, do you have any comments on that motion? Okay, all right, all in favor? Carried.
sorry, just to confirm, just for our minutes, is it the amended motion?
No.
Or is it the original
We
motion, but we
didn't-
won't charge? So I guess my comment would be that if we're gonna leave the motion as originally done, but we won't charge penalties until December 1st, then let's go with the friendly amendment and just say November 30th as the date people don't have to pay their taxes. Because realistically, oh, I see, sorry, let me go back. Yep, no, it's okay. So we should make a friendly amendment to say that they're due October 31st, however, no penalties will accrue until December the 1st, 2020.
Yeah.
Is that reasonable?
Is that reasonable, Fred?
Fred, is that good for you? Okay, great.
Christine seconded? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
good.
so based on that friendly amended motion, all in favor? Carried. Okay. All right, Dave, 6.2.1, please.
Good evening, everyone. So 6.2.1 is a request for decision regarding asset management capacity building cohort application. What this is we are working with Palliser Web Services to put in a grant application for training for three members of staff. It's one counselor and 2 members of administration to form
Not it, Dave. Not it.
to get training on asset management. So the town of Drumheller has an asset management policy and did work regarding asset management and setting systems up in 2016, I think it was, correct? Sorry, my glasses are fogging up here, so it's making things... I'm just going to take them off. I'll go from memory. So we've not, the town itself, the town administration is not, due to resources and other changes of staff, we've not actually really progressed with asset management since then. So this grant and the following one, which is following it, is an effort from the town administration to restart and restart the process, get an implementation plan, and start getting it implemented. In order to get these grants, they require a council resolution or motion to support them, which is what this represents. So this first one is for an AUMA grant that will be working with Palliser and several other local communities on this in order to get involved and get progress going. This specific one is for training. The town's commitment would be to identify staff to go for the training and pay for the travel and the staff's time. So other than a fairly minimal expenditure of resources, there's not much of a commitment to it. But it'll allow us to get some people trained up for it again, get everyone thinking about asset management again, and start the process up and get an implementation plan in place.
All right, can I get a motion, please? Jay?
You're being paid by the word on these motions, Dave?
We got the motions based on guidance from the grant recipient, from the person the grant's going to, so I apologize for the lengthiness on both of them.
Settle in, everybody. The town of Drumheller resolved to submit an asset management capacity building cohort application jointly offered by RMA, AUMA, IAMA. The town of Drumheller commits to incur travel and accommodation charges associated with cohort training and understands these will not be reimbursed. The town of Drumheller recognizes that participants may be asked to work with the project team to provide at least one meeting space to hold a meeting. The town of Drumheller will commit 3 people for training for the purpose of learning establishment and development of an internal asset management team, development of an asset management policy, and development of an asset management strategy.
I get a seconder? Christine or Fred? Christine, please, thank you. Comments? Christine?
So mine's more of a question, Dave. Is this the web map system upgrade that they're basically going to have it so we can access the web map and see exactly the age of all of our assets and lines and things like that?
Yes, more specifically, that aspect is under the next motion for the grant for money in order to do some more scanning of archived records so that we can tie it into Palliser's web map in a GIS-based system and download and be able to access and work with that data in order for our asset management. So that specific thing is more related to the next grant app motion. This one is so that we can get staff reestablished on what asset management is, establish a strategy, a team, and an implementation plan for actually implementing it fully in Drumheller.
Okay, perfect. And they would then be responsible to go and try to figure out the assets, the age and everything of all of these things to be implemented into the web map?
No, the people getting the training would more be senior staff and council in order to act as champions and exponents of the system in order to make sure that we don't have a repeat of what happened this last time where staff changeover results in it not getting fully implemented. The responsibility of people in this first motion would more to be drive it, make sure that it is occurring, that it actually happens and gets fully implemented.
Perfect. Thank you.
Jake, go ahead.
Just a comment, Dave, and then a couple of quick questions. The comment is I'm really happy to see it move forward. I mean, several years ago, asset management capacity asset management strategy was lauded as the new gold standard for how you're going to get funded for things going forward. I mean, it's how you create a business case to be able to prove to people that this thing that we're talking about is worn out, and that's why we need to continue to plan and set money aside for decades to come, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm really pleased to see you taking a step that's going to address that, as well as the institutional knowledge not leaving if with one departure. Quick questions. When's the grant payable and when would the training be taken?
The second question as to when the training is, I'm not certain about that time frame yet. The grants need to get submitted into AUMA for the training one. It needs to be by the end of this month, which is why I need the thing in. And then I believe I want to say it was a 30-day period for a response, but I'm not 100% certain on that.
So you'll know by the fall in all likelihood?
Very likely. I'm working with Cody, the GIS technician at Palliser, regarding both of these grants. So we'll be working in closely with him to make sure that we're getting the grants in, that they meet the requirements for the grant application so that we can be successful. And then we'll be working with him and his team and the fellow municipalities in the area in order to make sure that we all work towards it consecutively and concurrently, so that there won't just be a little group of us doing asset management. It'll be Palliser, us, and some of the surrounding communities all doing asset management, all working towards the same goal and kind of helping each other and reinforcing that motion to get along. So I think it's the most effective way of doing it to make sure that there's a longevity to it, because things always work better when you've got peer pressure on your side helping you go forward. So
Well said.
Anybody else? Okay, very good, Dave. I just want to say that I love to see this because, yes, and it's something that all administration and future councils need to have to help the community go forward. So thank you for staying on this and getting it done. So all in favor? Carried. And your next one, Dave, 6.2.2.
okay, so this one is kind of a companion one to that first one. Again, we need a resolution or a motion from council showing support for it. This one does require $5,000 commitment from the town of Drumheller, but what we are asking for is that we put forward $5,000, that we get from FCM $45,000, and it'll allow us to do the two activities that we list here. Regional web map, asset management, module licensing and training. So training our staff on a web map system that is coming through Palliser. And then data conversion and document scan, which is the really important piece on this. Basically what we're proposing is either our own staff or more likely a contractor will come in and scan the drawings that we've got currently sitting on drawing racks at Public Works and in our archive into a consistent scan format naming system, and then use that to upload into GIS in a tied-in system and tied-in connection. Right now, we have a lot of drawings. Not all of them are scanned in. The ones that are scanned in are in different formats. They're not always clear. This will allow us to do a mass scan in of that data, get it loaded into a system that will allow us then to actually access it and retain a lot of that knowledge, so that instead of finding something because you spoke to the right person and found out that there was a drawing hanging on the second floor of Public Works that has what you need, you'll be able to go in, type in a statement of guidance, and have that drawing pull up showing where it is on a web map system. So it's a way of making sure that we retain and can actually access a lot of that archived and historical knowledge that is currently in people's heads, or we have the drawing but no one knows where the drawing is because the person that knew where that was is no longer with us. So we're trying to make sure that we've got that clearly archived and recorded system in place.
Excellent. Can I get a motion on the floor? Jay, sorry.
Be it resolved that the Town of Drumheller Council directs staff to apply for a grant opportunity from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program for Palliser Regional Asset Management Project. Be it therefore resolved that the Town of Drumheller commits to conducting the following activities in its proposed project submitted to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program to advance our asset management program. Activity 1, Regional Web Map Asset Management Module License and Training, and Activity 2, Data Conversion and Document Scan to Web Map. Be it further resolved that the Town of Drumheller commits $5,000 from its operational budget towards the cost of this initiative.
Seconder? Fred? Comments? Jay?
I assume, the operational budget is in tatters, given what's gone on this year. But much like in the previous category, we already budget for travel and subsistence, and no one's going anywhere or taking anything. I would imagine finding the money will be rather elementary. And I also wanted to say, Dave, this is so you. It's all about organizing things with big picture strategy and policies. I know you're giggling with glee under that mask. Well done.
Yeah, a little bit. Thank you. Okay.
Anybody else? Comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Sean, 6.3.1.
Definitely not as sexy as asset management, but it is a third reading of one very important bylaw for residential development. I hope everyone had a chance to digest it over the last 2 readings, and are there any questions at all?
Can I get a motion on the floor first? Jay, sorry.
Thank you. I move third reading of bylaw 13.20.
Second. Fred, comments? Go ahead, Jay.
Thanks, Sean. You know how much I like this. It certainly pushes us out of our comfort zone for things that we've never done before. But I understand and appreciate your confidence in that. That's why we do new things, because they've been tried in other places and have worked. I am curious, though, having had a chance to reflect on a couple of these things. First off, under 2.6, just to be even more clear language with people, I know and you know that special and improvement levies probably refers to the seniors requisition. But just for increased clarity, ought we not, since there really only are, at the current moment, 2 requisitions on people's property tax, with the exception of their municipal taxes, the Seniors Foundation requisition and the Alberta school tax, ought we not list it specifically?
Well, there are more. So for instance, if you were in Cambria to East Cooley and you were paying for your water line
Right.
on your tax bill, that would be an improvement levy.
Right.
Or if you were doing,
Well, I'm suggesting you leave those. I'm
oh,
just
yes.
suggesting that we name the Seniors Foundation because it's
Okay.
going to be there every year.
right, sure, we can absolutely put
Just
that in.
amend it to that?
Yep, sorry.
So really just semantics, but again, just for clarity, because you know what'll happen if we don't. Somebody will come back and say, well, you didn't say this one. And 2.7, we've found ourselves, is that the one? No, forgive me. Which one refers to renovations not being allowed? Thank you. My glasses fog up too. So we've seen in the commercial one, incentive bylaws that we've passed, that we might need to be more flexible and have some of those incentives apply. And so when I'm thinking about the residential incentive, here's my concern with disallowing renovations. This community is replete with tiny homes from the 1920s and 30s. Now, while I think in a long-term strategy, we may want to encourage the demolition of those homes, given that there's no way they're up to today's codes in any way, shape, or form, and that sometimes the bones are not intact enough to be salvageable. In terms of what we're trying to encourage, where developable land is a finite commodity here, if someone were to find these old minor homes, anything built, previous to 1960, where really the bones of the house are absolutely A-okay, and gutted it and renovated it to today's standards, and spent probably the current home's value in doing so to bring it from a $60,000 house to a $130,000 house, they'd be ineligible for the incentive. And yet, given that I haven't seen a ton of infill, we haven't seen a lot of those homes come down in the 20 years that I've lived here. I'm wondering if, since that would still achieve the purpose, what we're trying to do is broaden the housing continuum here to include far more livable, far more saleable homes in the under $250,000 range. Ought we not be more flexible in including things that could be considered eligible for the project? I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Go ahead, Sean.
If I could make a suggestion, if we pass this tonight, we could probably do a Schedule C, where we could write up a separate one for renovations and just would be able to capture better data under that specific policy. So that's what my recommendation would be, is I could do up Schedule C, and we could add this into the bylaw. Yeah.
Sorry, amended at some later point?
Right.
Yeah, okay. I can live with that.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm just concerned a bit on, so if we do that amendment, Schedule C, I guess I just want to make sure we're not letting people just come in and put lipstick on and then, just flip it, because unfortunately that's been a known thing in the valley here, and I don't think it's fair to those new home buyers that, if it's going to, I'd like to see in the schedule that it's definitely specific that, the electricals looked at, the plumbing, because it's not fair to these people, especially young people that don't have the guidance from.
Right. We could definitely build in those type of concerns to alleviate those type of concerns, and also maybe attach a minimum dollar value to the renovation.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's certainly not my intention that this be merely lipstick kinds of solutions to make something more presentable, but in
Absolutely.
reality, under the surface, it's still decrepit. Not at all.
Yeah, absolutely agree. It's just that whole, just like that specific on the seniors, if we don't have it
Yeah, I hear you.
very specific. Go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, that was my thoughts as well, guys. Like, maybe one of the things that in the building code that came up, 9.36, the energy. So that one would be a good one for people having to cross that off their list in terms of renovations, because the things that you have to do to bring you up to 9.36, then you know that they are getting the house completely.
Good point. Anybody else?
All I'll add, Your Worship, is that even though I requested the delay, no feedback from anyone about anything as it relates to these incentives, unfortunately. But I did appreciate the extra time.
And I just want to clarify on 2.9.2. So, how was the ability to stop? Is this just for like X amount of years, or let's say somebody buys one of those homes and then ends up leaving Drum for a couple of years and then they rent it. Like, I just wonder, it just so that, in future we don't have somebody coming saying, well, that's not in the bylaw. Just, you got clarification on that?
Right, so the spirit of this is that we have a developer come in, they build a home or a townhouse, and I own a real estate company or another type of company, and I come in and buy that home and immediately start renting it out. The spirit of this is for people to actually buy a home and live in it. So it's very difficult to police, but there are ways that we can do it, so.
Go ahead, Jay.
I know what you're getting at, and I think that so long as, again, we're not trying to control what people do with their private property, we're trying to control how they're eligible for this incredibly generous abatement. And so in the event that someone does wind up needing to sublet, or lease their house out because their circumstances has changed, they're certainly going to be free to do that. It merely means that their eligibility into this program has ended. And so, yeah, I would expect that, again, we're really just talking about the first 3 years of any new build. And after that, the program would be ineligible, so that anyone would be free to do as they saw fit anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, good. Okay, Fred, Christine, anything else on that? Okay, well done, Sean. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And I guess this is our last council meeting with you, unless you're still giving an update on the economic development side before you leave?
I absolutely am.
Okay, so you're not done yet. Okay. All right. Well, yes. Okay, let's move on to 6.41, Daryl, review of the strategic plan.
Thank you, Your Worship, again. So what we've done is kind of give a report on, I wouldn't say it's a quarterly report, but almost a semi-annual report of where we were, strategic priorities, and what's happened since the beginning of the year. So for the CAO report, we have done the proponent of the solar farm and the town have signed a lease agreement in the spring after approval was given by Alberta Utilities Commission. The expropriation of the existing lease was concluded in June of this year, and the proponent is in the process of securing funding for the project. So, we've done a gap analysis on public communications. They completed that work in 2020, and our comms team and some of our other staff have been going through and implementing those changes. Some of those changes were already in work when communication was being done. Under intermunicipal collaboration frameworks, all of those were successfully concluded in February and passed before the end of March, which was, even though the province provided an extension because of COVID, our council provided a resolution on all 4 of the agreements. So, and all 4 have been signed and sent to municipal affairs. A draft bylaw was created for derelict buildings and reviewed by the town solicitor, and now we're looking at the necessary amendments, and we'll bring a council report back, or bring a report to council in September, in one of our 2 September meetings, so.
Your worship, there won't be any votes on any of this that I've read. I just need to get a drink of water. So please carry on.
Okay, thank you.
We have not started anything on service level or KPIs overall for the work that's happened in the first 2 quarters, and I expect to start that work this fall. So, and then just kind of an overall arching comment for everybody. Just about 3 months of our work time was spent on the Town of Drumheller response to COVID-19. Many of the projects that we were expected to complete within the first 6 months have been deferred or took longer because of staffing resources involved in our pandemic response. And so I think that the fact that on all of our lists that we actually have managed to achieve things and knock some stuff off is, I think, a testament to the great staff we have working for us. So applaud them all on that. So.
Excellent. So that civic solar reset's done now?
Yes.
And then the public gap that's just
ongoing, and we'll be doing, I think, under Julia's communications, she's got a report back on doing an update on the gap on the communications. I think it's under her report. So
okay,
we'll
so
be
she'll
doing
give
that.
us a date. The ICFs are done.
Complete, yep.
And the derelicts, so I can just say.
September, I'll say, let's say the end of September-ish.
So 28th?
Sure.
Okay. And then service levels, KPIs?
Probably we will give a report in the beginning of November, once we start the work in September.
Okay, so I'm just going to put down November 2nd for now.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Daryl. So now we will.
So here, I've got
you're
human
gonna do 'em all?
resources here.
Okay.
I'll just do that for
Okay.
Nicole. So we have, so again, some things have been completed. Work was started on the incentive program for for service innovation. Update to council in one of the October meetings. And customer service initiatives proposal, we have not started any work on those priorities at the end of June. An update to council will be brought forward in September, so probably the 28th there. Wellness policy was done in the first quarter of 2020, and those changes in the promotional policy were distributed to staff in February. I think as we get back into fall and a bit more normalcy, we hope, we'll hopefully provide more information back to staff so we can see a bigger uptake and provide a council report back in November. So. The job review description, or job descriptions review, so nothing was done in the beginning of the year, and expecting to start the work in September, so probably in November update for that information. And HR policy review has begun and work is ongoing, and an update will come forward at the end of September. So the just a note on the amount of work that our HR manager has done over the last 6 months with respect to trying to hire staff, work on, fortunately, laying staff off. I think that we're all probably counting on her an awful lot to be getting our resourcing back up to speed, and especially when we're trying to get it done quickly. But so she's done an admirable role to try to get that through. And one of the interesting parts, just mentioned it on camera, is that CERB has been a bit of a boon to people, but also a bit of a detriment to employers, because we've certainly had cases where people don't want to come back to work because they're getting more money to not be at work than they could be at work. And so it certainly made her job and all of our jobs a bit harder in the recruiting of some of the, especially the seasonal staff or part-time staff to come back. So.
All right, thanks, Daryl. Okay, so we just moved down the line. Does Lynn want to come forward?
She does not what she will. Do you have any questions? No questions.
Okay, let's go to Julia on communications. Oh, are you going to come forward? I thought you were actually kidding or serious that you weren't.
The face.
Okay.
Short and sweet, as this got dropped on me last week. Anyways, okay, so on the list was the bylaw inventory priority list, which has not been touched yet. Spending policy, I believe Mike was doing some work on this, so it'll come back in August, September to council. And the IT upgrade, the server upgrade was done, and the migration to Office 365 was done. And through the COVID response, a number of other issues or enhancements came forward, and we are implementing a new timekeeping software that will work right into our VATM payroll system. That will enable employees to enter their time. It will be uploaded and directly input right into our payroll system, so it's pretty cool. We've purchased some other enhancements, a RIM, it's called RIM, which is all about reporting and inquiry in our financial software. It should make life a little bit easier in preparing reports. And ICT Online upgrade, which is a little more user-friendly for vendors and customers to access their information online. That's it.
Well done, Lynn. It's been a busy time for you, but you handled it with grace and class, so thank you for being there through that whole COVID thing and the changes you've had to go through, so well done. So Daryl, do you want me to just put...
Really gonna miss Windows 95, hey?
Do you want me to just put the spending policy and IT upgrade to the end of September?
Yeah.
And then the bylaw one?
IT upgrade is done, right, Elin, on your list? IT upgrades are done. Well,
Okay.
they're never done, but
What we've asked for is
right,
done?
was done.
Okay.
And then the spending policy will come back in September, middle of September?
Just...
Yes, middle of September.
Oh, I got September 28th, but,
I can make it before that.
okay,
Yeah,
so we'll
it's
make it
pretty
the
much ready to
14th.
go.
Okay. And then the bylaw we'll look at, we'll put right now, for now, see where we're at in 1st November and see where we're at. Okay, we can adjust these dates, you and I and Denise. Okay, well, thanks so much, Lynn. Okay, let's go on to communications, Julia.
Okay, so we've been quite busy in communications. We launched the Dino brand in the middle of COVID, which was very exciting. And so we've prioritized internal documents and things with the new brand. The cards, the cards getting wrapped in the next 2 weeks, so that's very exciting. T-shirts are being ordered. The swag is here. The next step will be the trucks, and then starting a plan for signage and more external work, because we really had to prioritize the internal documents first. So we've almost done that, and now we're going to go outside. And I think we need to do a plan so that we can work out our budget for this year and next year and things like that. So that's what's going to be happening. And I've said I'll come back to council with that September the 14th. We would hope to have an event. I'm trying to work with the Millennial Group and Christine to get a wall painted, but we'll see. So we'll see how we get on with that. Town app, I launched in February. We've had over 350 reports come in, which is very exciting, actually. I think the community have really started using the app. I'm not sure how many have taken up accounts. I've asked SeeClickFix and they haven't got back to me, but I can find out for you. I think it's opened up some ideas for some of our teams. We need to think about SLAs a bit more and response and things like that. And we can always improve as we go, but it's worked quite well so far. And I said we'd come back again in October 26th with another update. We are looking at SeeClickFix for workflow and workload management, but that's more infrastructure's piece, so I'll let him talk about that if he has to. Website is very exciting. We put out our call for proposals. We had 24 expression of interests sent from companies all around the world, including India. So We are moving through the process. We're hoping to have the new website by the end of September. And the things that we're really looking at is improving navigation, accessibility, make it more of a two-way communication. We're even looking at kind of like an online portal with our swag and things like that. So we're looking at public communications, just going back to our communications plan. We wanted to improve public awareness, and one of those things is be more proactive. So Eric has done an amazing job with bylaw, working with bylaw to improve the public perception and just, talking to people about the different bylaws. And so Bert, the bylaw dinosaur, has been released. We work with the Tyrrell and our designer, and it's working really well. And what we're finding is people are actually quoting bylaws now, which is just brilliant, because that's exactly what was the purpose. And just following on from Darryl and the Alchemy, the communications audit that we took earlier this year, Darryl and I, we've spoken about it, and we're going to write an action plan going through. So we've achieved some of the things like branding, but there's a number of other things that need to be worked on. So in the next update to council will be October the 5th.
All right. Thank you, Julia. I appreciate, you have no idea how nice these dates are, so I don't have to ask. So thank you. I appreciate that. Does anybody have anything of Julia before we move on? Okay, thank you.
Oh, just,
Sorry,
you
Dave.
have no idea how little I want to talk about See-Click Fix. Should I wait to ask Dave about some of
No, it
these?
depends because I do the promotion and get people, what's the question?
The question is, I'm trying to make sense of the data that's here.
Yeah.
When you say 363 created in that period, and then way down, I see 87 number of requests within the period that are overdue. Let's talk about that number, because it's 24% of them. What does that mean? That we didn't close the loop very quickly, but the work is done? What does that mean?
I can answer this, or at least I can try to answer this. I'd have to do a little bit more digging to get a really precise answer. But the way what that basically means is that they were things that went longer than the SLA. So it could be something that came in that was more complicated than we thought it was, so that it took longer to resolve. It could be that it was a bylaw issue and they were having problems getting a hold of the person to speak to. There's a lot of reasons why these things could have gone long. One of the things that we're going to be seeing in this is that when we have numbers like that, we're going to have to start identifying, is it a one-time thing? Because this is a period that included COVID, so as we were trying to roll it out and learn the system, we were also dealing with COVID at the same time. So it could just be a learning curve item with something new. It could be that we have misjudged our ability to meet our service level agreements because we felt that we were better than we are. Or it could be that this is a period where something came in that we couldn't resolve, like someone asked for something to do with a tree, and instead of closing it, we indicated this needs to be resolved come a certain time period, and then it waited. So there's a bunch of reasons why that could be, and it's going to be something that we need to look into and see click fix as we go along on how often is this happening. Is it a symptom of a problem that we have, or is it a symptom of the learning curve? And this was a pretty hard learning curve for everyone in this picture at this
Or
time,
is it an unrealistic?
or it could be something that's not realistic, and that's something that we need to learn from this as well. So realistically, we rolled this out in February. It's now, 4 months later. I would really be leery about answering whether or not there's a problem in our system or something, especially considering when we rolled it out, until the fall. That's when I think we'll get more accurate data of how the system is performing and whether or not the method that some of the methods we're doing are the correct methods. Because we have had some learning experiences with some of the things we encountered just before COVID hit, some of the things they encountered afterwards, the clarification that we came with just a few weeks ago. So there is some things that we're learning and having to have some growing pains, as difficult as it is to say that. But generally, I think that we've done a very good job. There are some stuff that I do know lasted longer than I would have liked to see as open, but all of those, when I asked about them of our staff, had legitimate issues as to why they were extending open, so.
Certainly, Dave, I agree. I really appreciate the additional information. I mean, the number of closed compared to the number of those created is significantly better than that, right? It's so I really appreciate the additional information, and you're right. It's certainly too soon to know the answers to some of those things, but I appreciate the explanation nonetheless. Thank you.
Christine?
Yeah, and just kind of in that same vein, I'm zooming in here. It looks like a lot of them are sitting under that the other, and I'm just curious if they picked out the ones that you had said a lot of people were putting them under the other, but they do actually fit in a different category. Have all of these cases been picked through and these are actually the others, or is it kind of everything that was in there?
I'd have to double check on how the reporting's being done. Generally, if something comes through in Z other, it's myself or Greg Peters is the one that sees it. And we make every effort to, if it's in a if there's another category it should be under instead, we recategorize it. But sometimes that doesn't happen, or sometimes it's like, oh, this one is just, I can answer this right now, even though it should be another one. So if it's Monday morning, it's first thing I'm in a hurry. Sometimes rather than recategorize, I'll just deal with it. But it's not realistically, I shouldn't be doing that. I should be actually recategorizing. But I'm not sure if once I recategorize it, it triggers into the other category, or if it stays in the original category is put in under. That's one thing that I'm going to have to dig down into to confirm how the reporting is working. It's because it's a new system for me. It's something that I'm still trying to completely get my head wrapped around some elements of it.
No problem. Thank you.
I will just add for those who are listening, who may not have the data in front of them, while almost a quarter of them may have taken longer than we would have preferred to address for a variety of reasons like you outlined, Dave, the closure rate is 90%. And that's still an excellent number. Yeah. Thank you.
Christine and Fred? Okay, so just on C-Click, I love C-Click Fix. Anybody that's out there and listening, instead of, you don't have to call council or administration, you just go to the App Store, load up CSEECLICKFIX, you put in the profile, you pick your town of Drumheller, and you can report. And it's very, very efficient. I 100% agree that the numbers are difficult right now because you guys went through a terrible time through COVID trying to, as well as implement this. And I'm excited to see how this thing progresses because I'm hearing great things about it. It's wonderful how people, call and I say, load up your app. And I know there's still some I send emails, but they insist that they don't load up the app, but we're getting the community on it. And I think it's giving a base for you guys to set up a system so that, in the future, you obviously know what's, so thanks a million. I know it's a lot of work, but I just love the program, so thank you. All right, let's move on to, Darren's not here, right? Next meeting? So since you're there, Dave, do you want to just do your infrastructure?
Yeah, I can just do mine then. So I apologize. As I sat down here today, I realized that you guys had asked for me to put last year's numbers on each of the quarters. So I will fix that for the Q3. I was in a little bit of a hurry to get the numbers together this time around. So I'll make sure that I put last year's numbers in an adjoining column so you can see the differences and changes from the same quarter last year. But I apologize that wasn't here this time. Safety-wise, Q2 had more than I would have liked to have seen, but I would feel that currently we're doing quite good. As you can note, there's 4 of the 9 were in COVID-related items for the safety. Staffing, those are just our numbers currently for infrastructure side. Policies and procedures, due to the first 6 months, I haven't had a real time to contribute on anything there. That being said, the turf management policy, so the plan of the grass cuttings is being developed and it'll be ready for the next council session. As for strategic priorities that were on the previous list that was provided, The cemetery was the first item. Capital budget this year has approved $10,000 for scatter garden. I have been conducting some investigations into this. In order to do a scatter garden, we'll need to do some tweaking in the bylaw. So my utility cemetery clerk, Samantha, has identified what changes need to be done in order to do that. We're developing work procedures for how we would handle the scatter garden. And I've visited several cemeteries that do have scatter gardens. Note, I did not actually visit Penticton. I had someone that was there get me some photographs, so I'm familiar with what it looks like. You guys didn't pay for a road trip out that far. So, due to what I've learned at the visits to the sites and discussions with my staff, this is probably something that we can design in-house. And assuming that I don't have major issues on any of the capital projects I'm just trying to get out, I should be able to get a rough design together by the middle of next month that my staff will then be able to look at and figure out some form of implementation for. Based on discussions with the staff, it looks like we can actually probably get design and some in-house plantings and organization for a scatter garden done within that $10,000 and not just a design or concept created. So if you, at a council session towards the end of August, I should be able to give a much better briefing on that. The Rotary Park Fountain, we've got an approved capital item for that work now. We have met with myself, Reg, and Jason, met with Darwin Durney and the same contractor that did our work on the spray park, who is a water feature specialist, to identify and create a scope of work to get it set up. All the base data has been sent to the contractor, and we are just in the process of finalizing a scope of work and a budgetary estimate on that. This is a difficult one to spec out and kind of bid out, which is why I've chosen to have initial conversations with a specific contractor, in that there's a lot of things of, if we do this and it works, it's great. But if we try this and it doesn't work, we need a plan B and a plan C. So it's a little bit hard to get a very precise spec where we can send it out and just say, we want you to do X, Y, and Z and give us a price. So it's a little bit more of a correspondence needed to develop what the different options are. And then I'll be having further conversations with Daryl on the next steps of actually awarding that and how we can make sure that we're awarding it within the guidelines of our procurement policy. What was that? If everything goes smooth, the next time you guys would be seeing it, I'm hoping it would potentially be in operation before the end of the summer. But I don't want to make that commitment until I've had the chance to finalize the conversations with the contractor.
Okay, I'm just going to put it for August 31st then.
What was that?
August 31st, I'll put it on the calendar.
Yeah, sure, let's do that.
Thanks.
I'm going to try and beat that number, but at this moment, I don't want to make that commitment. So, the town presence, cleanliness, and vegetation. As I said, the turf management policy is being finalized with the updated drawings, and that should be ready. That'll be ready for council for the next council session, which I believe is August 4th. East Cooley Lift Station is 95% construction. We're just addressing deficiencies. This went significantly longer in schedule than intended because COVID hit and some bad weather conditions over the winter, but it's been completed within budget. It's just the schedule that kind of went out the window on us. So the last item on the priorities was the trail system, and I'll be honest, I have not done pretty much anything in relation to this. COVID and other issues hijacked my time, so I didn't get a chance to fully coordinate with Darwin the way I wanted to. I think this will be something that we need to sit down and talk about over a winter so that we don't have conflicting priorities. So this item probably won't be until next spring where I can really give a good update on it.
Yeah, I'll just put it part of the flood mitigation program.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then operationally, there's just the numbers of our treatment flows and our VADM work orders, which are utility work orders that have been created. And again, I will update this for the Q3 report to show the equivalent numbers from last year on the tables.
Well, thank you, Dave. Christine, go ahead.
So just for clarification, Dave, what is the level that we're bringing the fountain up, hopefully, when you said it's going to be potentially operational, just to remind everyone?
The target that was given to me was as it was in 1992, but there might have to be some small changes to meet current code requirements for Alberta Health and for fountains. So our goal is to have the basin, the spray arms, the lights, and the music, but we may have to just address a couple of things due to changes in building code and Alberta Health requirements. Since then, what the main thing that I can think of is the inner well, the inner center well where the sprays come from. We'll most likely need to get a barrier around that to keep people from climbing up on top of it. There may be some additional stuff once we've had a clear conversation with Alberta Health, but at the moment, the target is to get it back to the original 1990, I can't remember the year, I'm blanking right now on it. That original shape and condition is the direction that I was given, and that's the target.
Wonderful. And at that point, it was not a wade pool, correct?
The original one did have the basin in it and was used as a wading pool, and that's one of the things that I need to just get confirmation with Alberta Health on the aspects for that. But the intention is to get it back to where it was in the original condition in 92, which did allow people to wade in it, but there's some discussions that still need to be had to confirm the current criteria on that, but that's the target, and we believe we can achieve it.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else on the fountain? Okay, well, thanks, Dave, for that update.
Okay.
You're pretty efficient today.
I try.
Okay, well, I'm just going to move down past flood mitigation because we'll just move that to the next update meeting. And then Sean, economic development.
Alrighty, so the downtown, thank you, Your Worship. The downtown revitalization program is progressing along. We've got, I think, 4 meetings under our belt, and we're just in the consulting community engagement phase as we speak. Our communications department will be communicating more information on community engagement here this week, toward the end of the week. Dino merchandising, so we've ordered a number of items with the Drumheller Valley brand on it, and discussions are forthcoming on consignment locations for sale of the brand items. So we'll actually be making a profit off of these to go back into programs and services, or however council deems they be dispersed. Incentives, so we've managed to complete the new business vacant building incentive, the new commercial development incentive, the interior building improvement incentive, and today the multi-use residential incentive and the residential developer incentive. So you have a very good suite of incentive programs to go forth and multiply with. Solar project, Daryl covered that earlier. Dino Capital destination attraction activities are ongoing. We've made a number of high-level contacts through our foreign direct investment process to see if we can find some dino-themed attractions to visit Drumheller, and that's been ongoing for about the last 6-8 months. Municipal corporation, research is ongoing on the types of feasible enterprises. Currently under consideration as a nonprofit entity that can enter into non-competing business activities. Very important. We don't want to do anything that's going to compete with local business. And these will generate profits that can be used to enhance town programs and services. Housing, I've just mentioned the 2 new incentives that we brought in that will help developers develop affordable dwellings in Drumheller. And on KPIs, my department actually, we have instituted KPIs into our lead generation program. And that's it for me.
Questions, anyone? So just clarity on the branding strategy now, that's all done, correct? because that's all done, so it's being used. And the dinosaur capital attraction, that's just basically, we're just trying to find somebody to come and set up a park, or, so
Right,
that'll be ongoing.
Right.
Okay. Okay. All right, anybody else of Sean? Go ahead, Jay.
Sean, I think it's important to say that in your all too brief time with us, I think all of us would want you to know that your expertise and your problem-solving ability and your creative thinking and your enthusiasm for your work and this community has been appreciated by us in a way that's very hard to articulate without gushing. It was, from day one, a brand new era for economic development in Drumheller. And whoever follows you, because it'll be tough to succeed you, but whoever follows you has gigantic shoes to fill. And I'm sad by your departure, not for the least of which is all that could have been done had you had the opportunity to stay with us longer.
Thank you very much for the kind words. As you know, I've come into some newfound wealth, and it's just time for me to spend a little more time with family and fishing and the occasional beer. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I will have some time on my hands. So if Daryl gets a policy rewritten once in a while on his desk, that's very likely to happen. No charge. So thank you very much.
Note the date and time of that last part.
Anybody else? No, I'm just cannot send, just reiterate those comments that you have been a pleasure to work with. We became very good friends through all this. As we all know, an economic development manager and a mayor have to somewhat get along, so I can keep introducing you to people. And you've made a very strong mark in our community. People are going to miss you. I know I'm going to miss you, and I just want to thank you for all the work you've done. I mean, you've done some incredible work in such a short time, and really helped us raise the bar. And I agree that it's going to be tough to fill your shoes. And we're going to try our best to do that. And I appreciate your honesty about keeping close and keeping involved. And as Daryl has said, if there's still a couple projects you got to finish or help us finish. So we're grateful for that. So wish you all the best, you and your family. And going to miss you, man.
You as well, absolutely. And I will be back next summer camping. So now that I can afford to buy a camper, so that's nice.
Yeah, I was going to say, bring some of that money back here and spend it.
I will. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. All right, Greg, you're up next. Oh, sorry, I'm just going back up the thing. I kind of bounced around here, so I guess it's both of you, either one of you. Sorry, I just went back to, I've been bouncing around. This went down one side and across the other side. And
Okay, Your Worship, I'm not where I'd like to be on very many things. We've had demands on us, and
How
the way
so,
the year
Greg?
is gone.
How so?
No, I'm not making excuses. I don't want anything to come off as an excuse. I'm just,
Greg, please, we
but-
know what you've been up against. You have done a hell of a job through all this COVID, through everything you've been. So please realize that we appreciate your efforts. So don't you ever feel bad for a second. Okay?
well, I do. It's just
Just
it's the way we
don't.
operate.
Okay.
Sean and I, just going through my list here, late last year, Sean and I did some intense 2 or 3 day research into transport networking companies such as Uber and Lyft. And we are not nearly a big enough market for them to move to Drumheller at this time with their policies and everything else that's they operate under. The Hoodoo parking, I apologize, was late getting up and running, but it is up and running. We have enhancements, more staff. It looks better. We're operating every day of the week now. And everybody is, Antonia Knight, she was a tremendous help when the EOC was open. She is supervising the 3 young people that we've hired, so far so good. And covering about 11 hours a day. So far so good, and I'll have a report later in the year for council. A challenge for the fire department, the fire chief and I will be, there has been changes in the fire code, so much so that the fire chief can no longer do some certain inspections under our quality management. And we will need, he and I are doing we'll be putting a report together for council, and because this is serious business, to making sure we cover everything off and to try to meet our obligations in the most cost-effective manner, and for the public safety as well. I did expect to have my traffic bylaw done. I have a draft, but it's not at the point yet where I would, how do you say, it's not tidy. I wouldn't want anybody from council to look at it right now, just because there's the syntax, there's wording errors, there's more completion that needs to be done, but I have made some progress on that. I'm getting some, if it wasn't for Janice Armstrong and Reg Bennett, I would have much difficulty meeting some of the administrative requirements for occupational health and safety for the town. Their help is invaluable to me. Janice is doing a review right now, and including in that, as I mentioned here, pandemic and other considerations in our new OH&S town policy. We've had Jessica Curry, to her credit, and operating with 2 members, we've seen a tremendous increase in the number of files at the bylaw department, and largely due to Jessica's dedication, hard work, and attentiveness to duty. Combined with C-Click Fix and combined in the period last year, Jessica and I have dealt with approximately 540 files in the first 6 months before Officer Pizzola retired, compared to 318 during the same period last year. C-Click Fix, and Julie has been an invaluable help, and Dave as well, to us operating with C-Click Fix. The information we get under C-Click Fix, we operate under 2 reporting systems. We have our own secure system that our files are recorded under, and we receive, C-Click Fix could, in effect, be its own system. We can't maintain, with the volume of work, 2 reporting systems, so information we get in C-Click Fix is treated like a detailed, I don't want to use the word dispatch, because that might appear that it's being treated summarily, and it's not. But we take the information in C-Click Fix, we then create another file in our main reporting system, which can stay open for a long period of time, and to try to keep ahead of some of the paperwork and administrative and computer work, we conclude things in C-Click Fix almost in the first instance. Some things that I can deal with and anticipate will be dealt with in a week or 2, but some of the other things, such as complaints about yards, recalcitrant owners that don't seek to comply with a simple request or a notice to remedy, those can take weeks, sometimes months, to resolve the property issues. And now, through nobody's, I was discussing with the mayor on Friday, through nobody's fault, of course, there is a bit of a backlog on us obtaining court orders to go in and do property cleanups because of the situation with the court system. So again, I'm not making excuses, but we are seeing a bit of a backlog there. We work very closely with Colin Clute. Dave and I exchange a lot of complaints between the 2 of us. It may come in as one thing, but it ends up Public Works, or it ends up as a bylaw matter. So I feel we cooperate very well internally. Julia keeps us all in line and into the parameters of the system. But I was looked to the future, and if the town was perhaps, if we can fill this next bylaw position, But if we were to have simply a compliance municipal bylaw officer that could work, help land use, something we could look toward the future, could work with well-versed in land use issues as well as compliance issues under the bylaws that we deal with, and not necessarily the barking dog or the loud noise or the property stuff that we deal with, and we have authority under municipal bylaw and some provincial statutes, but looking to the future, a compliance officer, a technically minded, well-versed person who understands, and not to be necessarily nitpicky, but a person that would be things such as fence heights and things as assisting the development officer and little things, field work like that would be tremendous assistance, and it would be not a peace officer like myself or Jessica or the third person we hope to hire in the near future, but a compliance officer that would be, as I'm saying, somebody to deal in the that's what they call them in many localities in the United States. They're called bylaw is compliance. It's all compliance, but I'm talking strictly a technical, perhaps even somebody part-time, but somebody well-versed in the technical aspects of the bylaws, all town bylaws, and that's all that person would do. Perhaps just something to look to the future that we could get better service. And again, not trying to sound anything. Jessica and I put a lot of pressure on ourselves to meet expectations. Well, anybody disappointed, basically, is the bottom line. But we have come across, it seems this year, a lot of difficult, unhappy people when it comes to, whether it's the nature of society and the COVID and the virus, I don't know. There are different stresses on people. We understand that. But we seem to have had and in fact, I gave a small presentation to Public Works this morning just on that staff at their safety meeting on Monday morning, because we do seem to be having an inordinate, and it's not an old cop talking here, I'm just saying we do seem to have an inordinate amount of situations that are putting people under, some people not very happy.
No, I think too with COVID too, many people are staying home, so they're seeing things from a different light, so. Okay, any questions of Greg? Jay, go ahead.
So, everybody in the room knows that COVID took over your life, Greg, from the middle of March to mid-May at a minimum. And at the same time, you're trying to address 40% more complaints. And you won't let us take you off the hook for that. I'd make a remark relating to the guilt that's placed upon people in your faith, if that wasn't politically incorrect. But since you won't let us take you off the hook, Officer Peters, your excuses will no longer be tolerated. I fully expect that you'll comply with the requirements and requests that have been placed upon you within the time allotted. Do you feel better now?
I feel better. No, I'm not trying to be silly. We do. Jessica has a very good eye for detail, and she is very industrious, and we just don't like things left, not to sound poetic or anything, but it does bother us. But
I would have to agree that I think the stress of COVID and the sheer volume of people who are home longer now than they're used to has probably increased the volume of complaints about things. But at the same time, I was really excited to hear about what you talked about in terms of what the future could hold regarding some field work to assist in the during development process. I only have to walk around your old neighborhood in the back alley to wonder if we have any rules at all about fence height, because it appears to be, it should be uniform, and it appears to be anything but. And all those sorts of things happen very swiftly, and without my own experience with that sort of process is, last summer I built a new deck, and if I'd waited for my development permit to come through, it came through this April.
that's the kind of thing.
Since I was replacing an existing one with a contractor who fit all the requirements and that was initially accepted when they paid my fee, waiting for the stamp to come back on the form seemed ridiculous, and so does the service standard that fit with that. So the opportunity to explore whether or not some compliance could be requested during the development phase of the permits that happen, I think could go a long way, because unfortunately we have non-compliance in a number of ways that we, of course, as a small town living beside our neighbors, don't insist that things get torn down. Don't insist that remedies are applied in a number of things until we've kicked something so far down the road that all of a sudden 15 years later we're dealing with the fact that somebody built 2 feet onto our land or whatever. And it's only by having some compliance happening in the field during the development that we're going to see that change. So that was really interesting to hear. And you know I'm being facetious with you, right, buddy?
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I just.
But the other
I don't-
part, the dressing down part, you got that was a gag?
Yes, I got it.
Okay, good.
We're not,
It's just, I can't see
we're
your
not
smiling face.
thin-skinned.
on
I just
that.
want, we
Yeah.
just want to get stuff done. So,
Yeah, for sure. Always appreciate it, Greg. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
All right, well, thanks so much, Greg. You guys, anything over there? Got anything? Okay, we'll let you free. Thank you. All right, April, and sorry, I didn't go by the agenda. I've been going by my sheet, and you're on this last corner, so
Fine.
thank you for your understanding.
Saving the best and all that, right?
That's right.
Okay. Okay, so I provided a pretty comprehensive update before you, and so I'll just kind of touch on the highlights, I guess. We have, in our first strategic priority was poverty reduction and developing a poverty reduction strategy for the municipality. So having joined Tamarack, we have had 2 coaching sessions with them to that end and that goal. We also have begun a benchmarking food environments project here in Drumheller, and the data is all collected now, and it's been submitted to the University of Alberta for review and report development. The purpose of which is to highlight the availability and affordability of healthful foods in the community. Beyond that, focus really shifted to response to emerging needs during COVID. And so the rest of the plan for developing a strategy was kind of put on pause, including the recruitment of a coordinator, the part-time coordinator that had been approved in the budget. So I guess just speaking to some of the poverty reduction response that we provided during COVID and that is ongoing now. Since March 13th, we have submitted 13 grants applications, which has included a joint project with the Salvation Army that's established a homelessness project here in town, which is great because it means that for now at least we do actually have an answer of yes when people call and say, is there somewhere I can go today for a period of time because I need to get some things sorted out. If not, I'm going to be on the street or couch surfing again. So we do have that yes right now, which is great. We also secured $55,000 in funding from the Emergency Social Services Fund, and through that have developed a number of programs that include poverty alleviation. And I just to touch on one is the subsidized hot meal program, which as of today has 23 people registered and receiving hot meals at a subsidized rate. We obviously also provided assistance to the food bank in the form of money from the municipality, as well as staffing and assistance with grant writing to enable them to secure funding as well. We submitted applications for mental health and addictions, and I'll touch a little bit more on that later. Primarily because our community counselling program has in fact reached capacity with all of the 2020 funding allocated by May. So phase 1's been submitted, and we're actually working on phase 2 and hoping to submit that by the end of this week. We also submitted a request for $5,000 with Alberta Blue Cross to subsidize youth programming for low to moderate income youth over the summer, and that was approved. So that means that low to moderate income families are able to apply for a subsidy for Camp SOFO, which is happening as of today, in the hopes that we're reducing all barriers to accessing that programming for youth and children. We also then submitted 7 grant applications to the United Way Emergency Community Support Fund, all of which seeks to support low-income clients in various ways. And the Rural Homelessness Estimation Grant, 2 years ago, we conducted a rural homelessness estimation. We should be doing it again in October, and there is funding to assist with that, so we have made application. So I suggest probably, kind of coming back to review this in October, in the hopes that by then we will have actually reestablished some of the work to develop the strategy. In terms of youth programming, so that was our second strategic priority. We did develop Adulting 101 in partnership with the library and led 10 sessions with 15 attendees. It was very well received, and they are planning to host again. In fact, we began developing an online version of it during COVID, but staffing levels changed, and we didn't pursue that, but it will be back in online for the fall. We do have our coordinator back, point 4, working on youth now, and so she is assisting Camp SOFO these next 6 weeks. And of course, the ultimate goal is, per the strategic priority, is to establish a trial youth hub, and so that work will be ongoing. Initially, we had said that we would come back to council on this, having done a trial after the summer, but obviously that hasn't happened due to COVID. So I am open to your thoughts on when you would like to see us come back, whether you would like to see us end of September, or if you would like to see us later than that. Our third priority was events coordination. So we did place recruitment for the permanent full-time events coordinator on pause during COVID. However, that position has been re-advertised, and we are hoping to recruit shortly. We did submit a grant to Travel Alberta to assist with some activity in the downtown core over the summer and early autumn. I haven't heard back on it yet. We did host Family Day Unplugged in February and smashed our record with 719 attendees. That's the better part of 200 more than we've ever had before. And of course, Volunteer Appreciation had to be cancelled, our typical event, but we did host an online appreciation during Volunteer Week, and it was well received, in addition to having supported a block party in May, a physically distanced, compliant block party. Our fourth, so our next step with that is recruiting an events coordinator and getting back on track with that. Client database was absolutely placed on hold due to COVID-19. It is starting to be coming back on to the radar at this point, but would suggest coming back end of October for that. And lastly then, funding applications forms. So this is our application forms to our externally funded agencies. Currently and historically, we've only ever had 2 externally funded agencies through FCSS, and they are both the school divisions. Due to the reporting requirements for the province, and just to ensure that our paper trail is accurate, we needed to revise the application form and ensure that we were receiving the data from them at the end of each year and during each year that we need in order to be able to complete our reporting to the province. So it did get put on pause, but I am pleased to say that those applications have been revised and sent out to those agencies. So that's done. The 2021, so it was pretty far behind the plan, and so the 2021 funding application will also be revised and sent out late August with an October closing date, so that we're back on track with that. Yeah, and if you have any questions.
All right, thanks, April. That's a lot. Okay, council? Anybody up there? Jay, you got anything?
Just a really remarkable body of work during a period of time where you as well were wearing another vest for a lot of this time. And I just want I certainly, I mean, I sense the apprehension in so many of the things that were backburnered, but at the same time, it was completely and absolutely unavoidable as you were needed in other areas. And I just want to say thank you for what's happened so far.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, I'm just updating the thing. So do you want to come back the end of September? I think, yeah, because the whole youth thing kind of didn't really get going. So I think, or should we just wait and bring that back for the new budget?
Yeah,
Well-
I think it's, so go ahead. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's obviously going to be a budget item, so bringing it back around that time is probably sensible.
Okay, so we'll bring that just back at next, so I'll take it off of here for this time, because we're not
Okay.
really going to go anywhere, right?
Sure.
So they'll just say that's moved on. Events planner, I'll move to August 17th. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Just for an update, and hopefully that's all in place. And then poverty reduction short-term initiatives, like you've got so many, like you've done so much. Should I just put, like, do you want to just keep updating on us? Okay, so when would you like to bring another update?
So I put October 12th, but
Okay, perfect.
okay.
And then I got October 26th for the database, and then the funding applications forms are done.
You said, sorry, October 26th for the database.
Yeah, and we might switch those. I got to talk with Daryl and Denise. We got to figure out our calendars, but those are just roughly, yeah. And they'll give you, we'll get this whole form updated.
And yeah, so funding applications is done.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, thank you, April. And yes, COVID definitely changed your world a lot and changed a lot of our worlds, but let's just keep everybody positive, and I know you got a big job ahead of you, so thank you. Okay, anybody else I missed? Okay, thank you all for taking the time here today, updating council and those viewing public, because there's a lot going on, and appreciate everything you guys have done. Attached at 8.1, you'll find all the councilors and reports. I'm not going to make everybody read those, but they are attached for review. And, geez, am I miss something? I feel like we've never been done this early. Maybe we just got to me and Jay here more often. See you guys. No. Huh? No. Okay, so can I get Fred and Christine, I got to ask you guys something, just a moment here, but can I get a motion to adjourn, Jay? Seconder, Christine? All in favor? Carried.